All right, welcome to Radio Blasphemy uh, from this gloomy Sunday. So, yeah, I'm calling it Sunday Glumday. I know everybody likes to say it's, Sunday fun day. Not today. If you're from here, from the Chicago area, we've had nothing but rain for about 24 hours now, and yesterday was pretty nice, and the day before was really nice, and, you know, here we are, enjoying this beautiful weather nonetheless. uh, Spent the last couple days doing outside stuff, which was really nice. My chula will be podcasting with me. Oh, look! I just got a notice on my phone that says we have flash floods in the area. So, so my chula, say hi.
Hi, hello.
She's very nervous about this. She is afraid to come to the mic. She won't come to the camera, but um, it doesn't matter as long as I can. Part of the reason that I like to bring her onto the podcast is because she really gets me. She really gets me going.
I know how to push your buttons.
She pushes them in a way that uh, you know.
Nobody else can.
That's right. So what do we got today? So it is we're getting ready to open up the country again, or open up the states. Where a couple weeks away, and a couple things that are, social media is such an interesting place because you always get to see good, bad, and what people are thinking and feeling, and they share it with you. People tend to be open more than they are in real life, which is kind of interesting because I like to personally, if I see you in person, I'd like to be as open as I can. This just gives me another whole other platform to share with you. So, in saying that, there are people that are getting anxious about the reopening of going back to work. I think part of it is that we've gotten a little used to being at home. Even if you are working, you're still working from home and you're not socially interacting face to face with people. Mm-hmm. On top of that, you have that, you have a virus that's essentially, uh, is going to scare you. It's scaring people. There's a fear factor, and we'll talk about those that got those that call it a hoax. Conspiracy theories. I'm one that's a fan of conspiracy theories. I truly am, but it seems these days it's gotten out of hand. Everything has now become a conspiracy theory. It's ridiculous. It's not that bad, people. Look, conspiracy theories, I think, for me personally, it's supposed to give you food for thought. You're supposed to think about what you're being told.
Well, what you're being told, but it gives you the ability to go and do your own research.
You question it.
Mm-hmm.
You question it. So that's the beauty of it. Because in that way it's not that herd mentality, and we'll talk about herd immunity, but it gives us all the ability to free think. But when now everything becomes a conspiracy, now with everything being bordering on the ridiculous, I don't know. If your government really wants to get you, at the end of the day, if your government really wants to get you, they will. You're not that special. There's nothing about most of us, and I'm including myself in that soup. There is nothing about most of us that says my government's after me. They don't care. If my government wants to screw me, you know how they're going to screw me, and how they will screw most of you and all of us? They'll get us in our taxes. They'll put you in the poorhouse. They really want to get you. So stop being this secret agent that you think you are, and that they're out to get you. They're not out to get you. The citizens, people, human beings, we have a value to them. It is a financial value. They actually, here's a conspiracy theory. Supposedly, we actually are of value on the stock exchange as human beings. So we are sold and traded as a commodity. What does that mean? That you have the ability or the potential to generate revenue at one point or another. So because you are generating revenue, you actually are feeding that system. Now, conspiracy theory or not, it doesn't matter. That's a fact. You are generating a dollar amount into society, into the economy, so you have value. Some of us have less value. Uh, you know, uh, how if you don't? Well, even then, I guess I was thinking about if you're reliant on welfare, or if you're in the prison system. But no, even then, you generate revenue in the sense that uh, your state has to provide for you at some degree, and it's not there's nothing wrong with it. I'm referring to the fact that you have to um, you cause uh, uh, the federal government to give to the state government, or the state government to you, and you ultimately supply or feed the economy, which is not, it's just the way you do it. If you're in a prison system, you know everybody knows that each prisoner is worth something to the system. So there we are.
Is that part of their funding? Like
Well,
their
yeah,
funding?
a part of their funding. They set that money aside to to fund whatever it is. So yes, ultimately we all have value, even if we don't work, because that there's an economy that needs to be revolving. Um, so there you are. If they want to ruin you, they'll find a different way than this. Although it's very suspicious to me that there's a lot of deaths going on due to the virus, and I hate to talk about it more than I need to, because look, it's a virus. We're going to get sick. It's a cold. A hoax or not, it doesn't care. It doesn't care whether you believe it's real or not. At the end of the day, it doesn't truly does not care if you believe it in it or not. So hoax or not, it doesn't matter. If you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick. We had this conversation where we are trying to hide from it. We're trying to quarantine. At the end of the day, um, quarantine is for sick people, and most of us that are quarantining
Mm-hmm.
are still relatively healthy, so we're not sick. So yes, go ahead.
But that's what we're being told to do.
Well, it's helped destroy an economy, a global economy at that. And oh my God, it's the global. Well, small business is part of a global economy. We're all part of something. No, you're not. Nobody's that special. But by us staying in, we've actually prolonged it. Social distancing does work, but I think social distancing and all of this was just meant for us to not be a burden on the healthcare system. Because imagine all of us getting it at one time. Forget it. There'd be more deaths. Uh, Interesting points that again, social media has all kinds, and some of you like to talk about how. God, you must forgive me. I lose my train of thought. But you all like to think that.
Yeah, the healthcare system. You were talking about the healthcare
The healthcare system. Um, I really lost it. We'll come back to that point wherever it was. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, my mind drifts. I've apologized before. ADHD. Again, disclaimer. Disclaimer. I know nothing. I have no facts on anything. I just kind of hear what people say, and I interpret that. And sometimes it's just for conversation. I think it's great that we are able to.
Well, you share information. You share your knowledge, depending on what it is that you do as an occupation, and you share your experiences and what you heard, what you know, what you heard, what do you think, what are your thoughts, and you compare notes, and you compare. And like I said, you do your own research, and you can kind of come up with your own.
Well, I heard a bit today that but it's about herd immunity. I think that was my point, which reminds me. Herd immunity is not necessarily. Well, no, it is a pretty horrible thing. Herd immunity would work, and actually, what nobody talks about is that the way herd immunity would work is we are gradually exposed to it when we do get sick, because when we do get sick, we're able to be treated, and the likeliness of recovering is actually going to be high, or better at least. Now, I don't know if it's going to be high, but it will be better. But what begins to happen then is, because we have a better chance of recovery, we become, I don't want to say immune, but even though we are infected or we have the virus or we've had the virus, we can no longer spread it.
Right. You can't pass it on to anybody else.
You can't pass it on to anybody else. And that's actually what I marveled at, that once you've had it, you can't spread it. So I guess the key there is to survive it. And if we can survive it, then hurrah for us. We move on to the next evolution, because that's essentially what it is. We will have evolved. And that's all viruses do. They spend the time trying to get us, and we spend the time trying to get better than them.
Well, that's the reality. Unfortunately, some people will, like you said, some people will survive and they'll make it, and some will not. And hopefully, most of us will.
Well, what we again, this is the other point that I was making. Social media is very interesting in the regard that here we go again.
It's Sunday Glumday.
It's Sunday Glumday. I'm just so all over the place. God, I am horrible. I do apologize.
You're talking about herd immunity and how some of us get it, and some will make it, some won't. But we're not going to affect anybody once you already have it.
Well, yeah, but I think my point was jumping off to something else, and here I am again. Doesn't she sound beautiful?
Oh my goodness.
She has this. She has a better mic than this one, but it picks up just much clearer, so it sounds great.
It's the microphone, not me.
The other side of that is they're saying that we get it. We don't know if it's recurring. Actually, I think I posted an article on our Facebook page that says that it's less likely that we do get it. Obviously, everything's a hodgepodge of information.
It's too soon. It seems like they're still trying to figure out. It's like they're trying to find a pattern, and right now, it seems like there is no pattern. It's too soon to tell.
Yeah, we definitely don't have it. 3 months into this virus.
I don't even think they know.
3 months into this virus, and we definitely don't know anything.
No.
4 months, 5 months, whatever you want to call it. I know, correct me, but it doesn't matter. It's we don't know enough. This will be studied for decades.
Well, I heard that saunas don't really work. We heard that.
Well,
somebody asked that question.
Just like drinking bleach or spraying your mouth with disinfectant.
Although saunas are good for your skin and relaxation, which we all need. Less stress. The stress is not a good thing either. That's probably the number one thing that we need less of. We need to relax a little bit more, because stress does break down your immune system.
Well, and I purposely, the last 2 days actually, was outside, took off my shirt to absorb as much of vitamin D as I could. Because
you get sunburned, more like 3 third-degree burns on you.
I'm 3 shades darker Mexican now. I'm more of my natural color. But it's there's a divide that I like to talk about, the divide between on social media, about those that believe and that don't believe. There's the extreme, and unfortunately I'm finding that those that swing to the right are Republican, to say it, and those that are Democratic seem to swing the other way. The Democrats seem to believe that this is one of those things that is they believe in the fear, while my Republican friends believe that we'll get through this, or it's a lie. Me and one of my buddies actually said, you're a coward if you're in the middle. Well, I am in the middle. It's a biological thing. There is no controlling it. There is nothing that we can do about it at this point. Oh, vaccines. Look, H1N1 was the Spanish flu. It's still around. HIV was discovered about near 40 years ago. Still no cure. Oh, they can control it. Yeah, but it's still around. That if there's any indicator to pathogens that we just have no control or are able to cure, it is what it is. We don't. We like to think we're in control, but we're not. But getting back to my friends, uh,
Being a coward.
well,
You're
no,
a coward.
I'm a coward, evidently, because I'm somewhere down the middle. I want to survive, I want to live, but also I'm not afraid. So what does that mean? That means you assess your situation, you act accordingly, you protect yourself as best you can. You know, the whole mask debate is hilarious to me. Look, you're such a tough guy, but you're afraid to wear a mask? Come on. Then where's your toughness? Yes, if you wear it in short spurts, you're running your errands, it shouldn't bother you. Superman, even if it's just the illusion, sometimes even if it's just the illusion, what does it take? What does it cost you? Nothing. You're protecting somebody, maybe. But it's one of those that we have. I think with the fear that is being projected, that it's not a bad idea. Comfort somebody to make them believe that they're being protected, even if they're not. It's psychological, and there's nothing wrong with that. Are you such a horrible human being that it bothers you so much to put on a mask?
Well, let's say if you're going shopping and you yourself cough or you sneeze. I mean, when I go, I'm afraid to sneeze, and I sneeze. I'm one of these people that sneeze multiple times. So the whole store would feel like as if I killed them all the way I sneeze. But it's true. It's also to prevent my germs or my cough or my droplets getting on somebody else and giving somebody else that protection of not. I mean, think about it. Before all this, how many people would just cough and sneeze and not cover their mouth?
Well,
they wouldn't.
It's the illusion. At the end of the day, it's the illusion because my favorite one lately is if a fart can get through your underwear and your chones and your pants. You could smell a fart. What makes you think the mask has any protection? And it isn't. But
why would you think?
It's not mine. It's just somebody did that. I'm just repeating what I've seen. And it's funny because tell me if that's not the truth. You could smell a fart even through all of that. So what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, that's just like getting your vitamin D outside. I was always afraid to get sunburn, and I burn very, very easily. And yesterday and the last couple of days, a little bit of the sun that we had, I went out in a tank top in my yard and did some yard work, and I got sunburned pretty bad. But I will say it did feel good, and I haven't been sunburned like that, and gosh, since I was a teenager.
Well, that's kind of the point,
right.
And that's the sort of thing that builds immunity. That's the sort of thing that builds immunity. What's interesting, everybody complains. Again, I'm just regurgitating a lot of what is being put on social media. We are not told not to go outside. It's just what you do when you're outside that matters. Right. And if it bothers you so much, I mean, again, it's just sometimes. Look, don't be so damn afraid either that you don't go outside in fear. That's you're hurting yourself at the end of the day.
Right.
You truly are. You're hurting yourself unnecessarily. So, be careful as to what you do. Hell, like I said, we spent some time doing yard work.
I mean, even walking around your block, it's good. Even if the sun is not out, it's good to get natural sunlight and to get some air, a different environment. I think a lot of that has to do with your psyche there, having a different environment, spending a little bit of time with nature. If you all notice, a lot more birds and animals are out and around. I've seen a lot of rabbits.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some raccoons.
Yeah, a lot of those.
And possums, yuck.
In one of the comments, they said, is it a violation of rights for no mask? Rights are very tricky.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is a very tricky thing. At what point do you discern between rights and privilege? Your rights are plainly outlined in the Constitution. Oh man, that is funny because I just thought of all these freedom fighters. The freedom fighters.
The Patriots?
Yeah, the freedom fighters protesting for our rights. Shut up, guys. You look even dumber. than those that are hiding in their basements for fear of the corona. You even look dumber. Your rights are clearly outlined in the Constitution. Nothing about them telling you to wear a mask. Nothing about if you go to a store, they have the right to refuse. That's actually
Oh, I've seen that. They say
yeah
if you don't have a mask, you cannot come in,
yeah.
and they're limiting how many people are per square footage as well. I've seen people walk out, be told that they can't come in, and I've seen people get very angry and curse and saying this is ridiculous and
Oh yeah, we're part of
very interesting.
salon groups. Michelle's asking about how many people will be comfortable getting services, specifically to in the massage sector. I think there's going to be many that are not going to be comfortable.
Right.
But at the end of the day, let's take a look in the cases that are for states that have already opened up.
Mm-hmm.
People are swarming these places, and it's ridiculous. Um,
Yeah.
we in the salon groups we saw um, basically adults acting like children, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
because they were told to wear masks.
And some of the patrons are not being very
Understanding.
compliant or understanding, and on both perspectives. I'm coming from, the people that are doing the hair and things like that, the stylists and all that. They're overwhelmed because a lot of everybody's trying to get in all at once, and why can't you take me? And why, we're it's like you're not allowed to work the way you once were, and everything is you have to rethink everything. You're going to have to limit yourself. And some of the things that we were reading, that a lot of the stylists and people in the beauty industry particularly were fatigued. They were tired. They were tired of not only the physical labor of their job, but also the mental, that they're having to contend with. A lot of their clientele, like Rico was saying, they're very difficult. They don't want to wear a mask. They don't want to wait. They want to walk in and be serviced, and it can be a lot. And also, they also mentioned the disinfecting procedures that they need. That is something they had to step up, that maybe a lot of them were not doing, and now they have to allow a certain amount of time to do all those things. And some people, or I guess some of their clientele, were not appreciative of waiting. They wanted to be serviced when they wanted to be serviced. So I think that gives us a little insight as to what's going to be out there. The way we worked has to change.
Well, again, Michelle's saying, what if the clients won't comply? When we had our location, we had the right to refuse, and we will.
I think that would still that would I think
apply.
I think would still apply at this point.
Mhm.
Well, it's because it's what it goes under. It's a government mandate, correct?
No, it would have to be law in order for that to be, and this is not law. These are guidelines set forth
Mhm.
by individual states,
Okay.
which is something that they can do, but at the end of the day, they're not. I don't think they're enforceable. You can,
Mhm.
however, which is very interesting, you can get fines and tickets and citations for violating their guidelines.
Well, yeah.
So I guess that's one of those that you would have to keep in mind, that
Mhm.
if your client refuses to comply,
Mhm.
you're the one with the license. You are the professional.
Right.
It's up to you to decide yes or no, not to your
Right.
client. You unfortunately or fortunately, you have to make that decision and take a stand.
Right.
Will you lose clients? I throughout the years, I can't tell you how many clients we lost because they all of a sudden they owned you. They act like they walk in and they own you. It's not the way it works. You're the professional.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. I guess it's people that can. Yeah.
No, Michelle. So Michelle's saying that everybody needs to take an online. See, this is what happens.
Take an online one. I'm sorry, I didn't
Like
see the question.
a tutorial or a lesson on how to act after this. They can only set guidelines. Even now, there's going to be a lot of people that will be sued. I think it's up to you as the service provider, and I think this is for all things in general. As the service provider, you need to educate your client.
You need to educate your client and educate yourself, and I think you need to be very exaggerated on your your sanitation practices, even more so than what we're taught in school. I think that you should follow that and exaggerate, but you have to give maybe you can make a list or little guidelines depending on whatever your profession is that you can have your people follow ahead of time.
Yeah.
Start
Yeah.
giving them like a warm up. Hey, this is what you're going to expect. So this way, if they don't want to follow that, they can make that decision then and there. But you know what? You're protecting yourself. You're protecting the people that you work with
Again, you're the
and
licensed
your
one. Yes,
clientele.
you are the licensed one.
Right.
She's also asked, what happens if your employer is the one that's laxed? Then again,
Then I think that's a really big thing that you need to step back and reevaluate the bigger picture here if your employer's not willing to
well, I'm gonna go back to
comply.
I'm gonna go back to what I said.
Hmm.
Your license. They have their license. You have your own.
Right, and remember, they can take you to civil court, and that'll affect you yourself as your own license. A business can only do so much.
Yes.
Right.
If you violate, you are taken to they are sued, and then they pursue as many licenses as they can.
Correct. Yeah.
You should be insured. So
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So yeah, definitely that. When you have an employer that is not following guidelines, even before this is with any business at any time. If
Well,
you're the professional,
right.
and you're not, and it's there's a code of ethics. Every industry has a code of ethics. Any industry that is licensed has a code of ethics, and it must be adhered to. And if you don't, then that really falls on the licensee.
Right. Well, then that'll also determine what small businesses will make it and which will fall. I hope not, but I've been in the industry a very long time, and I foresee a lot. I've seen a lot of businesses that weren't even complying way before this. And I'm sitting here, sometimes I think in my mind, how many are going to fold simply because of that, not following proper sanitation and disinfection. And even now, it's going to become more intense, Well, somebody brought up a question, now that we're talking about this. Somebody said, well, what about your older clientele? In which, it's like something to think about. People that are 60, 65 and older. There's certain precautions, and someone asked, well, should we still service them?
That I think ultimately that falls on you. That truly falls on you.
And you're right. You, like Regal said, you have to properly educate your
clients.
Your client.
I'm sorry, I adjust.
Your client to, but you're right, Michelle. You got to do a lot of research and talk with have an open conversation with your employer. And sometimes, sharing information. Maybe sometimes they're just not aware or didn't take the time to follow those guidelines or look at it. And that sometimes it's good to just communicate and share your thoughts or hey, I have an idea. This is what we can do. This is what we probably should do.
Well, look, what begins to happen as well, and again, we've been employers, so there's a whole other side that we see, which is the financial end of it. So we're always trying to figure out how to generate revenue. That's what we spend a lot of our time on, not just the servicing, but so these new protocols or these new guidelines are going to be. I don't want to say the word, but yeah, they're going to be expensive, and of course, do you want to spend that as a business owner? Do you take that into consideration? So what you may perceive as them being lax, they may be one where maybe it's out of budget. Who knows? I can't imagine that being the case. At the end of the day,
right.
As a business, there's certain things that should never be out of budget, but obviously there will be.
Right. Well, this is the thing too. Moving down, this is something else that we're going to see. We don't know, like everything else. We don't know. There's not enough research. We don't know. As it's going to be a trial and error. I think it's going to be about a good 6 months before people start to find a routine and what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Well, right. The problem is they're in 6 months. We'll be in the winter months, and they're talking about
the second wave. Yeah.
What's interesting about that to me, I mean, and again, are we being lied to? How much of it is true? How much is and I'm referring to the numbers. Okay. You look at the disparity between a state like New York and one versus Florida. New York having a Democratic governor and Florida having a Republican governor. and you see, you know, populations are very similar, but there's a big difference in between the number of cases, the number of deaths, and you have to question that. Somebody's got to be lying. Now, is New York the one lying, or is it Florida? One is trying to inflate the numbers, while the other one is trying to suppress the numbers.
Well, who's suppressing? Is it
It would have to be Florida suppressing.
Florida suppressing? Well, is it because it's? I mean, I don't know. Would the
but-
demographics be different? Where it's at?
Well, no. Political alliances sometimes I think dictate to them. You know, the party calls for them to say, "Hey, you're going to suppress numbers." No, that's possible. It sounds ridiculous, but it's possible. And not only that, but if you think about it for 1 second, Florida has a far greater elderly population.
Well,
You would
yeah.
think they would be ravaged.
Well, that's what I was thinking because you have a lot of the older communities that are out there.
Well, even now, if you see a lot of the deaths that are currently being reported, they tend to be out of nursing homes, and which are for the most part sick and elderly people in these institutions. So that has a. Can you hear the rain?
It's very sad. Well,
And then again, for all of you that missed it earlier, we were talking about conspiracy theories. Excuse me.
he's talking too much.
Yeah, when I talk too much, I take in a lot of air and I get hiccups and
Out of breath.
and I'm like, I get very excited. I got nothing else. For those of you that are friends with me on my Facebook, yes, I have nothing to live for but food. Food in this podcast, evidently. That's my life, and no regrets. I love it. Oh, yeah. Michelle just brought up an interesting point about tourist season. You're about to get that in Florida, but you're also getting hurricane season, so that's going to force them right back into the house.
Yeah, that'll be weird.
Let's talk about a little bit of the positive. We've been. I don't want to use the word quarantine because we technically haven't been quarantined. Quarantine means you're really stuck somewhere. We are free to move around. We are free to leave our homes. We're free to do as we please, within certain limitations. Which if it's for the greater good, I don't know what the problem is. I don't really see an issue. So let's go with the positive. Prior to this, the Chula and I, we lived such a hectic lifestyle that we were just always at work. It was always about work.
Always going, always going.
Always going.
Never resting.
Yeah. First thing, I could really hear that rain.
I know, it's coming down. It's getting dark.
Yeah, we were spoiled. What I'm finding is that we spend a lot of time in the simple things, and specifically I'm addressing meals. We eat 99.9% of our meals out of the house, out of things that I make.
There's nothing he can't cook or make.
Not necessarily the case. Yesterday, this is the first outside meal that I've had since all this started, and my daughter-in-law came by. She's like, "I'm going grocery shopping. Can you guys watch the kids? But before I do that, I'm gonna go pick something up to eat." And she goes, "Do you want anything?" And the first thing that came, she goes, "Tacos or something." I'm like, "Man, I could whip up my own damn tacos." I go, "You know what? Bring me a gyro." That's the one of the few things that I just cannot make at home. So she brought me a gyro, and it was delicious. Interesting about that, she only brought one for the Chula and I, and
We split it.
we split it.
It was really good.
Wait, let's be fair. We split it between three of us.
Yeah.
My son, myself, and my Chula. We three of us, and it was good. But I couldn't have the whole thing. It's gotten to me. That type of food just felt very heavy. And I know everybody's going, "Man, I see what you eat. I see you post everything that you eat." Hey, what's up, Jesse? Our boy Jesse's.
Hi, Jesse.
Um, the volume is low. Yeah, we're we've been trying to correct it.
Just talk louder.
It's
probably the rain.
Yeah, that's it's one of those things that I've been messing with. We'll get it right. I know I keep saying this, but on my end, I'm wearing headphones, and it's coming in pretty loud. So it's getting better. So hopefully you all can put up with me just a little longer. Yeah. So, but again, what's interesting about talking back about the food, I've actually began to lose a little weight.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. I'm not one to get on a scale, but I was like, all right, let me see. You can tell by your clothes. They feel a little. The clothes never lie. They never lie. So you can kind of feel a little bit. This feels a little loose. And I asked Rigo. I said, do you feel like you're? I don't know. It's hard to tell because we see each other every day. You know how it is. You look at each other every day. You're like, you look the same to me. I don't know. You probably can go use a shave or something. But anyway, get on the scale, and I'm like 10 pounds from the last time I got on the scale, which was probably back in February. But anyway, I noticed that, and he lost weight as well. So we're like, get on the scale, let's see again. And
it's very interesting because
Yeah.
you're
not trying.
Well, you think because that's all you're doing. That's all we've really been doing is eating, and with the occasional housework, but not much more. I mean, there's a few things here and there, that we do, but it's not, and I know we're supposed to exercise a hell of a lot more, but, and I know you probably could see my bike in the background. So, yeah, I just don't always get on that. Sometimes you get things and you think you're gonna do things. Oh yeah. Oh, it's the rain. Yeah, I know. So but it's a good thing. It's
these are positive things.
These are positive things.
So it's a good thing, a positive out of the negative that's happening.
Yes. So. Not only that, I think you once joked about how coming out of this, there are a lot of divorce attorneys. If you do this right, you should be very positive about things. There are some problems that we've noticed, and part of it is I don't want to call it depression, but it is gloomy. It does wear on us. It wears us down as people. This seclusion, social seclusion. I'm not going to even call it social distancing. I will call it social seclusion.
Ooh, new word.
New word. You heard it here first on Radio
Keyword,
Blasphemy.
keyword.
Social seclusion.
Right?
Yeah. So, that
Well, it could be a good thing too, especially depending on who you're secluded with.
well, yeah. Well, not more. The other side of that coin is who you've been avoiding. Yeah, because me myself, I've had some bad influences, and without them, I'm a good boy.
Yeah, I tell them, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go?
Oh, well, and as far as I've been able to get, socially speaking, is to the garage. Which, if you you can't really see it right now, but if you look behind me in the video, it's back there somewhere. That's where I run away to now, because
I'm going to the garage.
I'm going to the garage. Michelle's talking about having heart-to-heart conversations with the family, and that happens.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we do that.
That's what I was saying.
You bond.
You bond. You talk about things. I mean, we've had conversations with our children, and conversations that we never had before, and questions that come up, and it's very interesting. They express to us some things that they never did. But again, you're spending a lot of time and a lot of emotions during this. I don't know. I felt like I've been on a roller coaster since March. I'm sure a lot of other people have as well. So I think that's part of what everybody's feeling. So you want to express yourself, and it makes you feel better. I feel better after I talk to Rigo. So.
Well, and there's something that we've gotten into. You all have seen this. When you see me posting pictures of my grill and me grilling on it, let me further elaborate on that one. Typically, and I don't drink. Typically, but I will have a beer with this meal. And what it is it's four of us in this home, you know, and what it is we sit there and we have these conversations. We grill our food, and we'll have a couple beers with the boys. And what's interesting about that to me is I've said it over and over now is I have a new set of friends, and it's with my sons because now I'm having a couple beers with them, and I've showed them that the alcohol itself is not a problem. It's the abuse, and if we can enjoy a couple without overdoing it, it's nice. No, I'm not going back to drinking with all of y'all. You know who I'm talking to.
Regal's friends just get younger and younger and younger.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's funny is they become their friends become my friends, and I don't just so you can see if you ever send your kids over to my house, I don't feed them beer unless they're 21, and then it's up to them.
No, then they bring it.
Yeah, yeah, and they do. I can't tell you how many. We have two older sons, and their friends when they show up, hey, they bring the bottles or they bring cases. I'm like. And back then I was actually drinking nice and hard, so you know, like, yeah, well, let's get drunk. Cause, it's nice, but the younger ones, they still can't buy them. So, but nonetheless, it's very interesting. It's a new way of life, and I know they're saying about the new normal. What is the new normal? It's this and that. You know what? Life is constantly changing. There's always a new normal. Why call it a new normal now? It's just different things affect us in different ways, and we do different things. And technology, when all this technology came out, that became a new normal, but we didn't call it the new normal then.
Well, why? I think the main thing is instead of saying like the new normal, I know they're phrasing all this. I think it's just acknowledgement. I think humanity as a whole has acknowledged, and there are a few people that were aware of certain things, but I think now everybody is acknowledging, yes, this happened. Yes, we need to make changes. Yes, it's time. It took this to, I don't know, get everybody's attention.
The way I like to view this is a massive reset button. That's what we hit here. We've hit a massive reset button.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. I know for me personally, I feel so much better for it. Believe it or not, we were living a life where we worked and worked and worked.
Almost like the typical American.
That's all we did.
Way,
That's
everybody's striving, and then tomorrow will be better, and then or let's not create the past. Those are mistakes. Let's do this. Let's do that. And I think that
we lost ourselves. We lost ourselves in that.
Part of it.
And not that don't get me wrong, not that we're not anxious to go back to that to work, but I think the mentality has changed. I think definitely our mentality has changed. It's now almost a 3-month forced vacation, and I think coming on the other side of that, we will have different approaches, enjoying a little more of certain things. The things that we would spend our money on are insignificant, and we have learned that.
Yes.
We have learned that, which is very interesting because you don't know it. You're not aware when you're living in that moment. You're not aware.
Now in hindsight,
yes,
you sit there and you reevaluate everything and say, "Wow." One thing I did tell Rigo, I said the best way, and I think this is a way to describe it for both of us, is taking more time to live in the now. And that was my point. Sometimes we always plan for the future, and then you compare the past. And I said a big error, and maybe a lesson I should say, is something that I've learned and we both have, and we talk about it and we share, is living in the now. And that's something that I think moving forward is something that I want to do.
Well,
I think it puts less stress, and you enjoy each other. You enjoy the little things that we probably took for granted before.
Yeah, well, it's you can't live in the past. Don't forget it.
No, can't change it either.
You can't change it. Live, learn from it. Learn from it, but don't forget things. But don't live in them. And you can't worry about the future because you don't know anything about that. So in the now, Um, Again, just the little things. I watched I watched Zombieland the other day. I don't know if you guys have watched Zombieland, but I so enjoy that movie. But it was one of the things. Enjoy the little things, even in the apocalypse, which sometimes this feels what exactly it is. Enjoy the little things.
Enjoy your Twinkie.
Enjoy your Twinkies.
Right?
So it's not a new way of life. I don't think so. We are humanity, and as long as we've been around, no virus has wiped us out yet. Not to say that there won't be one that won't, but somehow I have doubts that this will be the one. Let's talk about what there was a big discussion about between a couple of my buddies today on the site on Radio Blasphemy page, and they were being critical of president's ability to prepare for for these sort of things. And of course, Obama was brought up, and of course, our current administration was brought up. Current administration, I think, personally, did about as good as they could. Not saying much, is just saying that that's as good as they could. I think we live in a world that we don't prepare for this sort of thing. The problem with that is that we prepare for war heavily. We are stockpiled on ammunition, guns, tanks. You've seen the videos. We are heavily stockpiled. Nuclear warheads, things that we may never use, Navy ships. And yet, when a crisis like this unfolds, what do we have? We're scurrying. Almost no level of preparedness. And that's not a criticism to this administration or to this president. But for the last 45 presidents that have been, none of them have prepared for this. They prepare for war. What does that tell us? What does that tell us about us? What does that tell us about our nation? Because we elect these officials. We could demand this sort of thing from our elected officials, and yet we don't. We go to the polls. Those that vote, we go to the polls, and we ignore these sort of issues. Oh, we have no control. We have all the control in the world. We surrender it. We have forgotten that our government works for us, not the other way around. But here we are. Let's see. We got my buddy's losing his mind. But again, 45 presidents, 200 and change years, 250 years almost as a nation. But war is more important. And it's not just this nation, but it's been throughout our history. We don't ever prepare for this. We don't know how to prevent it, evidently. We don't know how to deal with it when it happens. Because this is not important. This is a global situation. Now, we have the World Health Organization, and there's a criticism to me about that. The leader is not a medical professional. Well, Bill Gates, the vaccine specialist of the globe now, and he's not a doctor. You know what he is? He's a rich man looking to get richer.
It's an investment.
Absolutely.
Another investment.
Well, think about this. Even if you charge $1 per vaccine in a world of 7-point-something billion, $1. That's a lot, and it's not going to be $1. Plus the logistics to get it to everybody. The service industry that's going to be needed. Let's not kid ourselves. What is this really? I'm not going to say that's what this is about, but that's his interest in it. Why all of a sudden has he become a spokesperson for this? Again, conspiracy theories, the beauty of them is you need to question them. You question, I think that's why I became a fan of them, is because you were, it questioned what we were supposed to be, what we were told. The problem is there are people that are getting away with it now. They're just like, everything's become a conspiracy theory. Today I posted there was You cut off the antenna to your rim, to your wheel, so the government doesn't know about you. I mean, that's how ridiculous it's gotten.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, not everything is a conspiracy theory. Sometimes things are just what they are.
Yeah.
You know, for a while I believed that this is the virus was a bioweapon. I'm still on the fence about that one, just so you know. But
Coward.
oh well, yes, I'm in the middle. I'm a coward. It could go either way. At the end of the day, you know, and this is what I'm going to say. Conspiracy theory or not, plague, pandemic or not, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what are we going to do about it? You have to ride this ride all the way through. You have to endure it. You don't have a choice anymore. You're on the roller coaster, and you can't get off. You have to wait till the ride stops, and this ride may never stop. So what do? Sit there and panic? Then poor you. Live. Learn how to cook. There's new industries.
Yeah.
Out of chaos, opportunity is born. And there's a lot of people that they become ultra wealthy on this, if knowing what to do. Let's put an end to the old wealth of Bill Gates and I know what I wanted to discuss. Speaking of Bill Gates, there is a few weeks ago there was that video of that doctor, the Pitsnick or whatever her name was, that got put in jail for XYZ rags.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube kept deleting the video and it just made it more popular. It was just entertaining as hell to me. What I found funny about that is I watched the video and my filter is pretty big. I just shook my head and but what I did find out from that, and just from everything, you take what you should, that Fauci or government doctors or scientists or researchers are now allowed to own patents.
Yes.
And when they own patents, they're able to profit from them. You know, that's the American way. Excuse me. No, that's not the Rona. That's just me talking too much without no water. So what happens is they did all this research on your nickel. And now they own something. They own intellectual property that's forever theirs. Well, whatever the limitation is, 100 years, 150 years, and then it becomes public domain. But they own it to the point where they can profit from it.
Right.
That should be a big no-no, but that's not. So, you know, when you got, and that's a conflict of interest. So, of course, and there's a patent on the coronavirus. I don't know if it's this particular strain, but there's definitely patents on
There's several patents on.
So what does that say? That if they have a patent, and just so you know, you can't have a patent on something that's natural. You can only have something that is created or man-made.
Right.
So if it's naturally occurring in nature, you can't have a patent on it. So if there are people that own patents on the coronavirus, what does that tell you? So
what are they doing with them?
what are they doing with it? Did they have anything to do with this? And see, this is what I mean about this is how thinking and conspiracy theories sometimes, unfortunately, are born. But let's face it, there's some of them are founded in truth.
Yeah. Well, what is that? The Imperial College that Gates gives money to. He funds a lot of money, something like what is it, like 3.7 million or something like that.
Well, he was experimenting over in India, and people were becoming paralyzed because he was vaccinating them out of the vaccines that he's been behind. There was just a comment right now that said biological warfare. This is it. Let's give in a little bit to a conspiracy theory that this is man-made and it is a bioweapon. Let's give into that. Whether it's true or not, we will never know. That's probably one of the better truths.
Right.
But the truth is, in any war, there are casualties, both civilian and on the military. So what happens is when you are in a war, people die, and this has just been the weapon of choice. The weapon of choice was not a bullet, was not a grenade, was not a missile, was not a tank running over your village, but rather a bioweapon that attacked your population, all of it.
The silent killer.
A silent killer, and not a bullet was fired. Um, and it destroyed an economy, not just your economy. And the race is on. And if you pay attention to the markets, the race is on to who's going to come out on top after all
Who's
this.
going to survive it? The
On
economy.
top, more important,
Yeah.
on top. Because as a people, we want to be the dominating force in the universe. And that's what this is about. If, again, giving into the conspiracy theory. So what do? Sit back, enjoy the ride. You're on a roller coaster, but that's really what it comes down to. So that's you can speculate. Well, China released it on the U.S. in response to the tariffs, possibly. But you look at the markets. The markets are doing well, which is yes, they tumbled, but it's
They're still going.
they're still going. It just seems so out there to me because it's from whatever I've ever known about them, they shouldn't have survived that. It's crazy.
Well, yeah. You look around, and then you see that, and you're like,
Well, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Why is it happening?
yeah.
And why just to see who's on top? And that's the conspiracy theory. But hey, if we're you know what? I'm actually going to I'm gonna end my conspiracy theory there because there's always so much more that we can go on about. For those of you that subscribe to the channel, if you're on Facebook, go to Radio Blasphemy. On Instagram, it's Radio Blasphemy. If you are ever feeling bad for me, let me know and I'll I'll send you my quick pay. I'm just kidding, y'all. No.
Yes.
Here's those that are still listening. I'm actually put this on all social media, but here's a question. And because we're talking about social distancing, what are your thoughts on and we've explored this and at least the idea and of having company, for example, in your backyard, where you get to. You're obviously separated. You're obviously, you're following
6 feet apart.
6 feet apart, but nonetheless, and in the open air, which is
Yes.
supposedly a non-issue. What are your thoughts on that? Is it kosher? Can you do that? Should you do that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean if somebody has it, that of course there's exposure. But I mean, if you're and I know asymptomatic, you don't even know. But if it does happen, if you're sick, you shouldn't do anything. But evidently, Jose is getting flooded.
Oh no.
As far as I know, we're not getting flooded. But I'm on the first floor, which is above a basement. So I think some of y'all need to check your basements. I think I've said enough for today.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate all of you that have tuned in. I'm going to be a little more consistent. I did a new audio setup. I will raise the volume once I figure it out again. My Chula will be actually more active participant. I think she did a great job. When we all give her a little bit of applause. I think she did well.
Well, thank you for tuning in. Can I say that? Tuning in. Thank you.
Oh wow, money is seeping, says Michelle. I wish. But thank you. I appreciate your support. Let's if those of you that are active on Instagram, leave a message for the Radio Blasphemy. Anything you guys want to talk about, man. Let's do this. Let's make this a little more engaging. I'm actually going to upload this as a podcast because I've also started to record it as just a strictly audio file. So you can I'm gonna upload it and you can download it and listen anytime. I appreciate all your support. This has been a little bit of sanity for me. It truly has. I hope it provides you all with a little bit of sanity as well. You know, seeing as uh, we're in this together, not in the same boat, but definitely still in the same ocean. And you know, a little bit of support and discussion, I think it goes a long way. So again, this is Radio Blasphemy. Having said all that, we'll catch you next time. Thank you.